Hey, how you guys doing? So we're gonna go over the love life relations poll number 2. Basic gist is you guys answer a big poll, and from that poll I'll analyze and try to build trends from it. For example, like do Honoka fans like Chica and so on. So without further ado, let's just jump into the video because this one's gonna take a bit of time, and I'm gonna start with more of the raw data to give you ideas of how people feel about other characters and other stuff. And then we can go and further analyze trends based on groupings. So without further ado, let's go and jump into the first group, Muse. So it only feels appropriate to start with the group that started it all, and this is what I want to call a more raw data with simple analysis. So I just took your guys' rankings from 1 through 9, combined them all together, and this is the raw data. So feel free to pause, I'll be doing this for all the groups, but this is just an idea of how people feel about characters right now. So of course, first overall will be Umi. She has a 4.485 average. That's the best average. You got the most second, third place votes with the third most first place votes. And then you could see second place, for example, would be Honoka. And leaders tend to do pretty well overall. And then Kotri goes third. So you see there's a lot of love for second years. And last place, for example, goes to Hanayo. You can go look at the categories below where I separated the voters by demographics, so where they're from, and see how that affects if males like certain characters more than others. So you can build trends from that, or age groups as well. I also did subunits, so of course I get to show you how people feel about certain subunits. So we have Lilywhite winning first overall, which surprised me a little bit. I mean, I agree with it, but I thought people liked the BB a little bit more, but maybe I'm misremembering. But you can see it did very well, while Prontomp is last overall by a decent margin. So this is just an idea of what it looks like. You can take and analyze things. For example, you could see, oh, Nozomi doesn't look noticeably worse with 10 to 14 year olds, but she seems to do a lot better with Europeans. I wonder why, and such like that. So that's the basic look for this. I'm not going to go in that super detail for each group, but take a look at this and analyze it how you will. I'll analyze it more in detail soon enough. So let's jump to the next group. So next up we have Aqours. They've been active for a very long time and still technically are. And we get to see that Yoshiko is still first overall. Then we have Chika in second. There goes Hanamaru and Kanon, Ruby. They have been struggling for a while and they continue to struggle as well. We have Guilty Kiss winning, which no surprise, that's really loved subunit. Going to be followed by Azalea and then Sharon. So that's what we got for Aqours. Feel free to pause and look at all the details if you want to look more into it, but let's keep going. I got a lot more to go through. Now we go to Nijigasaki. Of course, this one has 13 members if you want to include you, so this got a little bigger. And first overall, we have Setsuna. Not surprised, Setsuna's OP. And we have Kana doing second. I'm glad to see that. And when we go towards the back, we have 13th place. That's going to be you. She doesn't really sing, so at least in Love Live. So you can see why she's towards back. But then after that, we have Mia and then Kaden. And then for subunits, the favorite is Diver Diva, followed by Rebirth. The points for the subunits are actually not that different. So overall, I think there's a lot of similarities in how people feel about it. Some people just like different things. Well, Rebirth is kind of the newest and hasn't had a whole lot. But it was kind of interesting to see that it was second place overall. For Superstar, we have 11 members, and in first place, we have Kanon. No surprise, people just like Kanon a lot in Love Live Superstar. She's just been first definitively a lot. Sumina gets second, a lot of people still like her. And then in last place, we have Tomari, one of the newest characters, and then 10 is Natsumi. People don't really care for her personality. So the Onitsuka sisters are in the back. And then for subunits, we have Synchronize taking first place with Kaleidoscore in second and Kachu in third. Now we go to one of the really newer groups, the School Idol Musical. Not a lot of people really know about them, so if you notice, there's definitely a trend with the voters, which is just voting diagonally. It happens a lot. So keep in mind, that's probably really screwing up this poll. So I don't take it with a grain of salt, but technically by the poll's rankings, Anzu gets first and Hikaru gets second, but Anzu is kind of like the big main character, so it understandably, and I would understand why people would rate her first overall, but I don't know. I think this one's pretty short, but just letting you know, that's what I have. Oh well. Now we go to Hasunosora. We have 11 people to vote for, and it gets kind of goofy because now we have graduated members that are still kind of part of the app in terms of story, but they're not really singing a whole lot of new songs here, so I don't know, but I put them part of them because they've been there for a long time, and I think it only feels right to have them part of the vote. In first place, we have Kaho. Kaho has been popular. Kozue, second, one of the graduated members, still doing very well. And then Izumi, one of the newest members, not doing so hot. And then Ginko being alone from her, which she isn't as new. She was from the generation before that. As for the sub-units, I don't think I've actually done a poll for this. But first place goes to Sarai's Bouquet. I agree. And then Dokostra in second. Miraka Park third. And Edelnote, or Edelnote, however you want to say it. It's pretty dang new and got fourth, which is understandable. They definitely have a different established vibe, but they're kind of lacking songs right now, so it's understandable why people voted it last. But that's currently what we have for Hasunosora. There's still changes happening, especially for Saras and Izumi, and what's going to happen when Kaho graduates and all that. So we'll have to figure out how Hasunosora changes. And then last but not least, we have the newest group. This is part of the Bluebird, Love Live Bluebird, and the group's called Ikuraizubu. So we have the poll for them. I did one poll, but this group is changing quickly, and there's a lot of things evolving. So people's opinions can change very quickly for this, especially with the songs coming out. There is a little bit of the people voting by diagonal, but it's not that bad. So you can draw some decent conclusions from this. Boka has first. She's the leader, quote unquote, for this group. So people tend to like leaders, so they gave her first overall. Second goes to Hanabi. Third place goes to Shion, and Shion has been killing with the solos. Then we got Noriko getting fourth. Fifth goes to Rora. Sixth place goes to Mai. Seventh goes to Yukuri. Eighth goes to Akira. Ninth goes to Midori. And 10th goes to Miracle. This does align with what I've been seeing before. So I think we got some decent ideas from how people are voting from and how people like these characters. There is some skewed data based on if they're a little more love, they're getting a little bit more love, but overall data still dominates. So I think we got some decent trends for this. So that's what we got for all the groups. Feel free to pause and look back at all of them and analyze as much as you want. But this is more the quote-unquote raw data. So if you want to see how people are feeling about the groups. But there are other things I did ask for other people, so let's go over those things. So the one there things I asked for, what qualities do voters prioritize the most in these girls? So what causes do you like the girls? Like, do you like it because things that happen in story? Do you like it because, oh, she looks pretty, therefore she's my favorite? So in general, people said personality was the most important thing. You get the most first place and second place, got the most points, so it gets first place ranking. And then what happens in the anime story is the second most important, and then voice, which of course is important. Love Live is about singing. There's a lot of songs. Voice is an important element of why people like characters, and it definitely is important to me. If I don't like their voice, I probably won't like the songs much, which means I probably won't like the character as much. And then you go things like for seiyus being fourth, how they look is fifth, sixth is relatability, 7 is ships and relationships, and then 8 is if you find them funny, 9 is collaborations, not really that important, but some people like that, and 10 I put leadership. People seem to like the leaders, but I guess leadership isn't that important. Next, I asked for favorite music genre. Pop, K-pop, J-pop, just pop in general. That's the dominant one, and pop also meaning popular music as well. It makes sense why that's number one. Past that, second place we have rock, and that explains why a lot of people like Guilty Kiss. Rock being second, then electronic, and things that are not that important like country and rap, which I don't think you would be a J-pop fan or interested in anime music if you were listening to country or rap. So maybe I'm wrong, but I think in general that's not the case. Then I have favorite color, which the favorite color amongst people is blue. That's the most favorited color out of you guys. Then we have pink and purple, where colors that are not that popular like brown, black, or magenta. So I'm curious to see, which I'll show later, how does favorite colors affect if people like that character. I also have year rankings. So what I did is I grabbed the amount of first place votes for anyone who was the first year, did the same thing for second years and third years, and compiled them all together. And then I made a big average based on that. And then for graduated, so the members that were part of Hasunosora that graduated, that are, I guess, quote-unquote fourth years now, go in the graduated category. And, you know, next year will probably be shifted to graduated, and so we'll have, right now currently we have like members like Suzidi in there, but that's why the votes are a lot smaller, because there's only 3 quote-unquote graduated members at the moment. And I have adults as well, because technically Squad Media School has 2 adults in there, and I made them part of the vote, and they don't belong in any category, and then graduate feels different, so I put them in there. I don't know. Anyways, let's take a look at the results. So overall, based on the averages, the favorite group is graduated, especially because we never had graduations before, so people have some feelings based on that, and perhaps that helped them. But if you want to look past that, it's going to be third years, then first years, then second years. This gets kind of goofy, because if you consider the first few groups, they never changed age or, you know, their year bracket. But now when we have members like Liella, who went from first years, second year, third years, and then we had the second group of people who become first years and second years, that changes things, and that can imbalance certain things. And then with the creation of Hasunosora, we had people join again, but we also have graduation, so they went even further, so that makes it kind of funky to deal with. So I don't know how perfect this is, but I'm doing my best to figure out generally what this means. Interpret it as you will, though. And then for the last quote-unquote raw data groups that I have, is I took the overall ranking for each of the big groups, and I'm curious to see where they are. Sorry, School Media School, I know you're just going to be last, so I didn't even include you. So, first overall is going to be Aqours. Wow, what a surprise, but longest standing group. They're still active, kind of, not really, but to this day, there's still stuff happening with them. But, you know, they've been here for, what, 10 years now? And that's quite impressive, and that really established the group, and people like them a lot. So second place we have Nijigasaki, so Muse actually fell to third here. And, you know, Nijigaku's been active for, what, since 2017, I think? Was it 2017 or 2018? And, you know, they have a lot of things going. They still actually have stuff coming out. They got the movies and a lot of members in there, so a lot of people have been liking them. Muse is the OG. They still have a lot of appreciation, but as time goes on, the further away they've done since anything. Like the last song that came out was 2020. That's 5 years ago, almost starting to get 5.5. And even before that, it was 2016. So it's almost been 9 years since they've really done anything significant. But, you know, they did a lot, and a lot of people appreciate that. Liella's in fourth. They're trying to make some ground, but, you know, they're a little newer-ish, so they need time to build up. And then we have Hasunosora. They're still in a distant fifth, but there are still people who really appreciate it. And then, of course, there's Bluebird. Well, they're brand new this year, so it's understandable why they're last. But some people have been liking Bluebird a lot. So that covers, quote-unquote, all the raw data that I have. Now we can move on to the purpose of this, which is more of the analyzing trends. So I'm going to go and show you what I put together and how I do this, because I'm going to make it so you guys should be able to do your own analysis by taking a copy of what I had and changing it willy-nilly to further analyze some trends. I'm going to try to answer a good amount, but I can't answer everybody's questions. So let's show you how I did it. This is how I handled all the data. This is basically everything that I do for all my polls, is that I created Google Sheets. So you can have a link to this and you get a copy of this, and feel free to take a look and stare at as much as possible and analyze as much as you want, because I can't physically possibly cover everything. That'll take forever. So we have a bunch of tabs here. The first tab is all the groups. This is all the stuff I already shown you. So this is just a pure raw data for every group. You can pan over and see each one. So I already shown all of this stuff. That's just there for you if you want to see that as well. And all that is calculated from all the stuff that I got from the results. The data is in the results tab, and I just extract from that, and we got 204 votes. So that's what I am doing. The next tab is the alt characters tab. So this is something I'll just quickly talk about, because some people want to look at this and say, well, I can't really compare first place from one character group from another, especially because there's different size groups. So I put a way to kind of average that out together. So what I have is just a pure raw average. So if you just want to see who had the best average period, for example, like it's Anzu. She had the lowest average possible of all people, but this doesn't necessarily mean it's the best, and someone had the worst was Yu. So in some ways you can think, oh, Yu is probably the least liked character. I don't think that's necessarily true, because there's 13 places available for her, while it's not available for Anzu, for example. So I try to put a power average, which some characters that have larger groups will have their average multiplied by factor to kind of compensate the fact that there's just more votes available. So for a power average, just the way I see it, it's kind of like who is the best character based on that. So Anzu's kind of messed up way the poll's handled, so instead I have Setsuna probably being the best. So you can see from that this is a way to get an idea of how like the character is, especially when compared to the other groups. It's not perfect, because I'm not asking you to pick your top characters out of Love Live, period. But you can see Setsuna's popular, Kano's popular, Kaho's popular, etc. While Yu, Izumi, Miracle, etc., those girls in general are just not that popular, even if you consider amongst the big picture. So that's all this tab is. This single character tab, that's where we're going to be looking at now. So I put this together, and it was a huge pain, but this is how I quickly analyze data and limit it to certain things. So oftentimes I would ask the question of, if you like this character, does that mean I like that character, for example? So the way this works is that I have a target. So we'll just start with something simple. So my target is going to be limited to Honoka. So that's going to be my focus of that, so that you can see all the things magically change on here, and I have a range. So I can focus on who voted what. So for example, if I put top 9, that's just literally anybody who voted for Honoka from 1 to 9, which is literally every single vote. Not very useful, but if you wanted to do that, and you can do top 10, but it's the same thing. No one gave her 10th place because it's impossible. But you can limit it to based on what you want. So for example, if you wanted, say, top half, so I don't know if that's 5 or 4, you can see, oh, 100 people voted for her being top 4, and that's about half of votes. I generally like to limit the top 3. That's how I envisioned, because that's usually the top, third, which is what I would consider what people like. But if you want, you can limit it to top 2 if you prefer that way, or literally whoever gave Honoka first place, what does that mean based on her people? But in general, I'm going to leave it at 3, but in your own free time, feel free to change it to whatever you like. It's there, and it's pretty neat to quickly change it and analyze it without staring at data for 10 billion years. So let's go over the first example. So for Honoka, top 3. So this is generally what I consider people who like Honoka a lot, not people who think she's okay or don't like her. So if you were to look at for Muse, for example, you can see Honoka, all votes are just literally top 3 here. Votes for 4 to 9 were discarded, and what does that mean? So of course, for example, since I said I'm only looking at top 3 Honoka, she's going to get overall first place, and you can see a huge increase of average, because I only got rid of all the bad or worse votes. So looking at Honoka herself, that's not very useful, but everything else is what it gets more interesting. So we're going to start looking at other characters and see, well, if you like Honoka, does that mean you like other characters? So, for example, if you like Honoka, what do you think other characters might like? So, for example, you can look at Hanyo. She had the 2nd best improvement, and then Koto had the 3rd best improvement. So that probably means, in general, if you like Honoka, you probably like Hanyo and Kotorimo, which is, wait a minute, that's the Prontom group by these relations. So obviously I'm going to go a little more than that, but this is just a quick example. And you can see, for example, if you like Honoka, when you look at the differences, oh look, Nozomi had the worst differential in terms of when you compare it to the general, where her average went up by 1. So if you probably like Honoka, on average you probably don't like Nozomi as much. You don't probably like Umi as much, or Nico as much. In terms of subunits, if you like Honoka, chances are you like Prontom more because, makes sense. And you like Lily White a little less, and BB's about average. And you can see it's still first place for Lily White. So if you like Honoka in general, you still probably like Lily White the most. But we can see there is a little bit of a pull. Not necessarily significant, but that's what I'm trying to show you here. So of course, we don't have to limit this just to Muse, and that's what gets more interesting. So let's answer the question. If you like Honoka, do you like the other leaders? So let's look at Aqours. So for top 3 voters of Honoka, we can see Chika is first place. And that is comparison to being second place overall when we did the overall poll. Which again, we can see here how Chika got second place. So now we get to see, okay, if you like Honoka, you do like Chika more, and it's the biggest improvement. As you can see, her average dropped about 1. And then for second, we got Yo, and then we got Kanan for third. And the worst, in terms of what got pushed back, was Yoshiko, and she went from first overall to third overall. So we can see, at least in terms of for Honoka, yes, you probably like Chika more, and you probably like Chika the most on average. We also see how does that affect the other subunits. You probably like Shauna a little more. So you see there is overlap. If you like Honoka, you do like Chika. But let's check the other leaders, for example, as well. So for Nijigasaki, it's a little more different how we interpret who the leader is. But in general, that's probably Ayumu, right? She is the quote-unquote leader. And we get to see her overall placing was 6, but she went to 3. And she had the best improvement by her average dropping a whole 1. Based on people who like Honoka. So again, it seems to show, oh, if you like Honoka, you probably like the other leaders. Let's confirm again with Liela. We get to see, yes, Kanon is number 1, but we also see another big improvement. And okay, so we get to see, this is a trend. Once again with Kaho, you get to see, once again, best improvement. For School of Musical, I don't know, there's an improvement, I guess, for Antu. For Bluebird, Polka, second best improvement, with Akira being the best improvement for Honoka voters. In terms of other things we get to see, we get to get a look at these as well. So the personality is still the most dominant, but we get to see there is some differences here. Now, the main thing would be leadership, but the overall ranking from 10 to 9, that's not significant. But so maybe it's because they have similar personalities, and that's why people like them. Now we get to see that. We get to see demographics, nothing too big to focus on, but if you're curious for that as well, you get to see males tend to like Honoka more on average. The overall voters for males was about 41, but 47 is going to be voting Honoka in top 3. So more of a male liking Honoka than females here. And we can see the big jump in the 15 to 20 age group. That's where we get to see a lot more Honoka fans, and less so in the 26 to 30 year olds. In terms of group, I don't know how much you can look at this and interpret it, but if you like Honoka's in your top 3, you're probably a little more of a Muse fan than, say, Aqours. So we can take a look at that. Color. So, of course, Honoka's image color is orange. So we get to look at the differentials. Actually, pink is the one that went up the most, but we get to see orange is the third most improved, with cyan being the second most. So if you like the color orange, you probably are more likely to like Honoka, not by a huge margin. It's still blue. Blue is still the most popular color. That's not necessarily a huge factor, but it might be a slight decision factor on why you might like Honoka. And for music, pop went up even more. That's kind of what her style is, but that's the kind of thing we want to see. And if you like Honoka, you see rock is not as important, and Honoka fans probably are not that quite interested in that. So that's the kind of idea that I wanted to show here. You can go and analyze this in much more detail. I can't go in this much detail for every character because it takes a long time to go through, but I did want to hit one in deep detail to give you an idea of what kind of questions can I ask and what can I do with this. So of course you can do the vice versa of these things as well. So for example, you can look at Chika and see how that applies. You're probably going to see similar trends. It might not be the exact same, but for Chika, for example, you want to see if you like Chika do tend to like other leaders. The answer is yes. You can see for Honoka, it is the most improved. It's actually written. So of course there are some slight differences, but in general, you could see, oh yeah, if I like Chika, I like Honoka more. In terms of Aqua, if you're wondering, the next best would be Ruby. I guess you want to go from Shadow, but Yo, for example, actually didn't do as well. So not everything is always so straightforward, but you can generally see, for example, Ayumu, there's improvement. Kanon, not actually, there's barely any difference, but that's the kind of idea. So let's look at another potential grouping. So next would be Ellie, and for Eddie, you know that she is the student council president. So if you like Eddie, do you tend to like student council presidents? So in terms of just Muse, you could see, yes, there is a slight improvement from Nozomi. It isn't the most noticeable one. Actually, it is Umi. So for Umi, she's actually the one that's most improved, but the one that's worse is, for example, Nico or Haneo in terms of who did worse. For Aqua, of course, the question is Diet student council later. And, you know, Diet relates a lot to Ellie as well. And she's kind of like one of her bigger fans. So yes, you can see there's an improvement there. In fact, she improved the most. Followed by Kanon. If you go to Nijigasaki Setsuno, it was the student council president initially. So you can see there is the third most improvement. Shioriko eventually took over, and there is a bit of improvement there as well, but Kanon actually being the largest improvement for Ellie. And then we could go see is Ren, and yes, once again, that is the most improved. Musical, I don't know how a lot of conclusion you can draw from this, and actually I don't know just student council presidents are some ahead, so I'm going to skip that one. And then for Hasunosora, I don't believe any of them are student council presidents, but Izumi is the one who improved the most. And second would be Seras, and then Kozue, which I feel like Kozue is probably the one that's most like Eddie based on what I know. And then if you're wondering for Bluebird, the answer is Hanabi. For the most improved, well, the least improved, or the one who did the worst most off would be Midori. So let's see, for Haneo, do you tend to like Rin more? The answer is third most, so yes, you tend to like her more, but Kotori is actually the one with the biggest improvement. And you could also see Honoka, not as much. So there's stuff like that. Like Maki, do you like Nico more? The answer is no, you don't, on average. It's actually a bit of a disimprovement, while the most notable improvement would be Umi. Another one of the things I was wondering, do you like Riko more because she plays piano? The answer is yes. Most improved. Both got red hair. Both went to the same school. But most notably, they are the ones who compose the songs, plays the piano. Does that mean you like you more? The answer is yes, because she also plays piano. She's the one who helps compose songs. Notably, she still is the worst overall, but there is some relevance in there. But in general, you probably like Setsuna even more so. She's just popular, and I can see some of the similarities that you have with her. How about in Liela? Well, you would think potentially May. They both got the red hair, and you can think, oh, piano as well. And there is notable improvement, but Shiki's actually the top most improved, while the favorite overall, so Kanon, and the second most improved. But you know, Kanon's rate does well anyways. As for Hasunosora, you can see Ginko is the one who gets the most improved for Maki fans. Then it goes to Suzuri, and then it goes to Kosuzu. And then if you're curious for Bluebird, well, first place actually goes to Shion. That's second most improved. Mai is the one who actually gets the most improved overall, but slightly compared to Shion, but Shion is the overall favorite. Hanami does get a bit of a buff, and I was thinking maybe because both red hair and kind of similar-esque vibes, there is some relation, so it does help. For Nico, we can look more into the gremlin-like characters. The one can be more of a troublemaker, and see who aligns with that. So if you like Nico, you probably like those kind of characters. So for Nico, for example, one character that seems to be more of that kind of character is like Hasumi. And you can see right there, -8, meaning that's definitely a big improvement, but actually you gets the most improved. But you can see how big of a difference it makes between 7 and second place. So that is a huge improvement, and it shows you, yeah, that's the kind of character you like. Setsuna's still the favorite overall, but not by that much. And you can see there is quite a bit of a disimprovement for Nico fans when it comes to Setsuna. If you're wondering, how about Natsumi? Yes, there is improvement to the point where she's not 10th, she's actually 8th overall. So there's improvement there, but overall the biggest improvement is actually for Sumine. So we get to see chances are, if you like the gremlin-like characters, they do line up. So if you like that, and for example, Ruby, which seems to line up with Nico, I'm not entirely sure why, but there is improvement for, if you like Nico, chances you like Ruby more, and there is noticeable improvement. So the one I was definitely interested in is learning about if you like Cuckoo, do you like Sumine, and vice versa. Because based on comments that I've seen, people like Sumine, but they kind of shy away from Cuckoo because of the way she can behave with her. So if we go to Cuckoo, and it's if you like Cuckoo, the question is, do you like Sumine? The answer is actually less, and it's notably one of the worst ones. Tomari is the one who gets the biggest disimprovement, but actually biggest improvement is you probably like Kanon or Chisato more. But for Sumine, it's actually a big disimprovement. But let's see if that's true when I swap it. So if we look at the top 3 for Sumine, who is notably the most improved will be Shiki. But as for Cuckoo, there is a disimprovement, but not a huge amount. Interestingly enough, most disimproved is Kinako, and then followed by Kanon. We can take a look at another friendship one, which would be Ayumu and her relationship amongst other Nijigasaki members. So top 3 for Ayumu. Do you like Setsuna more? The answer is no, you like her less. And for you, there's a slight improvement, but not that much. If you are a top fan for, say, you're going to see, do you like Ayumu more? Not really, it's about the same. In terms of Setsuna, also not really. You're going to see the worst is for Kanata in terms of that, and the most improved would be Miya. And I might as well complete the circle, I guess. So if you want it for Setsuna, if you like Setsuna most, Yu's not that noticeably different, and Ayumu is the 3rd most improved, but it's also not really that different. Shizuku is actually the one who gets most noticeable improvement, and I'm not sure why. Maybe because Asuna. And if you like Setsuna, you probably like Asuna more, which you can see. Look at that difference. Asuna is number 1 if you like Setsuna. So I also of course have to see the Mei Shiki combo. So if Mei is in your top 3, do you like Shiki more? The answer is yes. She is the most improved, obviously behind Mei, which is not useful information there. So Shiki is the most noticeably improved. So if you like Mei, you're going to like Shiki more. The difference between being 7th place overall and 3rd place. So that's a considerable improvement. And then Kanon just being the 2nd best because she's just popular in general. But how about vice versa? So if you like Shiki, and her being top 3. For Mei, yes, again, that does show that she gets the most improved if you are a Shiki fan. And so that's a combo that if you like one, you like both essentially. You like one and the other, and that goes well off of each other. We can also look at the sisters and see if that means something. So let's start with actually Daya, because I skipped her. So for Daya, do you like Ruby more? Not really. There's a slight disimprovement, but it's not the worst. If you like Ruby, do you like Daya more? The answer is no. One of the most disimproved, and that's obviously probably because first year, third year, very different personalities, different styles. Yes, they're sisters, they still love each other, but in terms of who you like, it's not that ultra similar. As for the Onitsuka sisters, so if Natsumi is in your top 3, you do like Tomari more, and it's a considerable improvement, a whole 1.3, going from last place 11th all the way to 4th, so that's a considerable improvement for her. And notably, if you like Natsumi, you don't like Kano that much. Dear lord, she went from 1st to 9th, a catastrophic 2.5 drop. That's kind of crazy. But yeah, so that's interesting to see. Let's see if the reverse is true. If you like Tomari and she's in your top 3, yes, you do like Natsumi a lot more. But it's only actually the 3rd best, or technically 2nd best, who actually like Margaret. And those are the first years, so there's that first year combo that's apparently a little bit more important than the sister combo here. That's kind of interesting to see. So that covers a lot of the ideas that I had. Of course, there's plenty of other questions that can be answered. Another one I was thinking of is, so I have Hanabi, and she seems to do a little bit more intense metal music. So I'm curious to see if you like Hanabi, does that affect what musics you like? So for her, types of music, for Hanabi, rock is one of them here. And I did specify make metal, though it's such a small sample size, I don't know how much I can consider from that. But you can notice the rock goes up. So I want to see if that's also true for Yohane. Yeah, you get to see there is an improvement. It's the 2nd most improved. Metal is actually the most improved. And yeah, so you can kind of see genres of music that they traditionally cover do affect people's opinions. There's the songs, their voices. Those have noticeable impacts on people. And that can influence whether people like certain characters. Colors is a small trend. I don't think it's huge, but I know sometimes it helps. And in terms of the qualities, I think it's more of an interesting to look at, but in general I think most people agree personality is the most important. But it does seem like a lot of the ideas, the trends, the similarities, those tend to do line up and tend to matter a bit. They aren't always necessarily the most dominant factor. Popular characters are just going to be popular even amongst just in general. That's how popularity works. But if you see some similar similarities amongst characters between these generations of Love Live, the fans tend to overlap a bit, and sometimes a lot. And that's kind of the whole science behind it. It's the whole point of all this. So of course, feel free to mess with this for yourself and answer all the questions you're dying to answer. This will give you a good glance, and I don't know, I think this was kind of fun. It's a big pain to do, but hopefully the payoff is good and you can customize it the way you want, and hopefully you guys like this kind of stuff. So that will do it for this video. Hopefully that answers a good amount of questions. I know I can't answer every single question out there. I know some people ask, do Yuri-bait characters tend to care more about relationships? Not really. In general, I didn't see that trend and so on. So if you got more questions, put it down below. Maybe I'll be able to answer them, or feel free to go to the link in the description below where I'll try to make a copy of this, and then you can look for yourself. I probably just recommend being a computer because I don't know how well this works on mobile, but feel free to look at it and filter the way you want it to see if those results mean something to you. But anyways, that's it for now. Hopefully you guys like something like this. I know this took a long time to put together, but hopefully it was worth it. But anyways, thank you guys for watching. Hope to catch you guys in another video soon.